Welcome back, Survivors, Episode 8, Season 4. This is Surviving the Season. I am your host, Adam, from the Baywater Studios in Tampa, Florida. Greg's here.
Yo, I had it muted. Welcome back. My bad. Because the kid, the little kid, he's in there screaming, just yelling. Figured I'd mute it while you do the intro, and I forgot to unmute. My bad. What's up?
Awesome. Yeah, we are here. We have a special guest today, Matthew Kuhn of Sins of Our Fathers podcast. They can be found at Sin of Our Fathers. Follow them up. It's a great podcast. It is another brothers hosted Browns podcast. Matthew, what's up, man? Nice to have you on, dude.
I think we have the claim to be the second most popular Browns hosted podcast.
I don't think that's true, dude. I don't think that's true. We got to be equal by this point.
Yeah, I remember we put that on there well before you guys were on there, and then I brought it up to Adam. I was like, now that there is a second brothers Browns podcast, maybe we should switch what's in our because we said number one. We figured, hey, there can only possibly be one number one rated Browns brothers co-hosted podcast in the world, right? I mean, so we could be the best at something.
Yeah, that reminds me of, I think I was talking to my wife the other day, and the TV was on. It was the draft, of course, and some coach or GM was being interviewed, and they were talking about becoming world champions. And my wife looked at me like, world champions? I was like, yeah, the NFL just kind of assumes that if you win the Super Bowl, like there's not another team somewhere out there in the world who could beat you, right? It's like, if you're the only brothers podcast, you might as well be number one, right? There's the only know of, you can get yourself that title.
I believe our original joke was just everyone had a podcast, so we were just like, oh, we got to be number one at something, because you know what I mean? Like, there's 4,500 Browns podcasts, but you guys are actually one of the good ones. I really appreciate what you guys do. It's really fun to listen to. The three of you live in Nashville, so how about some background on why you guys are Browns fans? I know Grandpa plays into that, and that is a hilarious segment that you guys do every week. But why don't you run back some of how you guys got into this?
Yeah, so we're all from Ohio. My dad was born and raised in Cleveland. Our grandfather, who features on the podcast, was born and raised in Cleveland. Me and my two brothers were born in Cincinnati, actually. But of course, if our dad was a Browns fan, we couldn't be a Bengals fan, especially in the early 90s, when that was not a great thing to be. It was actually more popular to be a Browns fan, even though they didn't have a team, than root for the Bengals. So
that's pretty sad.
Yeah. So we just grew up around the Browns. And actually, I mean, in 99, when they came back, I was 9 years old. So it was kind of the perfect time. I mean, it's like the time where you really even become aware of the team that you root for and can kind of have the mental capacity to follow it. And so kind of just timing that up with the rebirth of the Browns was perfect. And even though we moved to Florida after that and moved to Tennessee, we've just been the biggest and only Browns fans that we knew for the longest time. NFL Sunday Ticket was a godsend. We didn't have to be in Ohio to keep up with it. To be honest, I think we started the podcast because our friends and our wives and girlfriends were just tired of hearing us talk about the Browns, especially when they sucked. And it's like, people just don't understand why you're talking about this team that's won like 6 games in 5 seasons or something. And so we just one day realized that we should start a podcast, and it all kind of revolved around our grandfather, because every time we talk to him, he just cracks us up, and he's as big of a Browns fan as we are. And so we figured we kind of had a little pot of gold there if we called him for 5 minutes a week and just recorded it.
Yeah, and it's always just a cold call. Like, he has no idea he's even coming on. Am I on the podcast?
Yeah, he's recently become more self-aware. That, I mean, we told him from the get-go that we were recording him and he was on a podcast, but he had no idea what that meant. Right. And so he's just whatever. The things we tell him, he just doesn't have any context for. So he just kind of ignores and moves on. And that happens even on the podcast when we're recording with him. He doesn't hear something we say and he just laughs. There's no like what. He just laughs and says, "Yep," and it's like you just completely missed it. So we like to put that out there and get him, capture some of those golden moments for everybody.
I believe your guys' first year was the 0-16 year. Is that, or the 1-15 year?
It was the 1-15 year.
Ay.
No, that's not true. We were coming off the 1-15 year, and it was the 0-16 year. So we're entering our third season here.
So you guys have been through some shit too.
Yeah. So imagine how screwed up you have to be to watch a team go 1-15 and be like, you know what I want to do? I want to talk about that twice a week.
That's the dog check. Hey, do you know this guy? No, but I did a podcast where we went 1-15 and 0-16 2 years in a row. How about that? How about check that dog?
Exactly.
Yeah, you've been through it, man, for sure. But we're finally back now. I mean, this is. I would rather go 1-15 and 0-16 and then be at where we're at today than go 5-11, 5-11, 6-10, 8-8, 7-9. You know what I mean? And so it's so much better where we are now.
Yeah, you can get stuck in that cycle. The Browns were kind of the anomaly where they were stuck at the bottom for so long, which is just statistically more difficult than actually getting lucky and being good somehow. But you can get stuck in that cycle. I mean, we're here in Tennessee. I feel like the Titans have been stuck in that cycle for a long time. Like Jeff Fisher. You're 7-9, 7-9, 7-9, never have an opportunity to get a pick that's going to actually make a significant impact on your football team, especially at quarterback. They've been a little unlucky with Mariota, but I would much rather sink to the bottom and wait for that rise to the top, because you can be bad for 2 or 3 years and set yourself up in a position to be good for 15. And that payoff just is so clearly worth it.
Yeah, that's like the perfect team too, like the Titans, because if you look at their roster, it's pretty solid roster, and it all just comes down to having that quarterback. And there's something to be said. Like you cannot, if you just have a middle of the road quarterback, like it just doesn't matter. It's not good enough right now. I mean, Adam and I were talking about San Diego / LA Chargers, right? Look at that roster, top to bottom. Like stacked. I mean, that's got to be one of the best rosters in the league. And then you have Phillip Rivers, who is a pretty good quarterback, but just not good enough. And I think that's what, us as Browns fans, it's like, hey, man, we got Baker. Like this, to me, you look at him and you go, this is going to be the guy that actually gets us over the hump. Like he's better than a Phillip Rivers. He's better than a Mariota. He's better than a Andy Dalton. And it only took 1 year for us to see that, and it's so obvious.
Yeah, you can win with a mediocre quarterback, but you need a dominant defense.
We know from talking to Pro Football Focus, Eric, that was in here with us the one day, and they're talking about from year to year, defense really, it's up and down. Defense is really a hard thing to duplicate from year to year, but you can duplicate good quarterback play.
Yeah.
And we have that. So that's definitely a good thing. That's definitely the biggest thing I think that's going to be, translate the Browns into, I'm thinking Super Bowl. Greedy Williams thinks Super Bowl.
Why wouldn't you? Imagine, put yourself in his position. He's probably pissed that he dropped to the second round when he was supposed to be a first round pick by everybody's account for this whole process. But then you get drafted to a team where you're filled out with LSU players, probably a bunch of guys who you looked up to when you were growing up as a kid, but then also this team that's exciting. Like, granted, if you're a kid from Louisiana, you may have never been to Cleveland and don't have any idea what to expect, but look at the roster that you're joining. Like, that's got to be fun and exciting, especially knowing that you can team up with some young defensive studs like Garrett and Ward, and you're not going in. He's not going to come in and be asked to guard the number one receiver week in, week out and just kind of be put on an island and sink or swim. Like, he's in a perfect position to succeed. I'd be pumped too. I'd be thinking Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, and he's put in a good position. Like so many of these guys were put in maybe a position to fail where they didn't really have to earn it. I mean, you think about like Corey Coleman comes in, he is given the starting job right from the jump, and then he's playing with guys like Clipboard Jesus was throwing him passes that year, Cody Kessler. RG3.
Whitehurst played for us.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, that's what you're stuck with. And it's almost like you're being set up to fail when now Greedy comes in and you have a player that there is there in front of him who will probably win the job from the get-go. I mean, either way, I mean, both of these guys are going to have to earn it. If it's not Mitchell, it's going to be Greedy, or, I don't think Carey is going to be playing the outside, but every position now has competition. And then that one makes you wake up every day, makes you more focused, makes you realize that it's not going to be given to you, that you have to put in the work for it. You can't just walk in and be given the starting job. And I think that is how you set up people, at this level for success. Well, give them something to work for.
Yeah, and that's what's so different about going into this season is in past seasons, so much of the Browns' hope has been tied up in how rookies are going to perform in the first year. The Browns could have a successful season without having hardly any of our rookies provide any meaningful contribution outside of special teams, right? Like, we don't need any of these guys to come in and be starters or really solid contributors in the base formations.
Sure. Yeah, a minus injury, and now you're deep. Now you have depth, and that's the way it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to have to bring in, if you're a good team, you're not typically bringing in your rookies and going, hey, you got a starting spot from day one. It's just not the way it works. I mean, when the Steelers never do that. It just doesn't work that way, and that's because they're good. They're set at every single position, and I'm sure they're going to do it this year with Bush because they're weak at the linebacker position. But most drafts, when you look back at them, they got to earn it. I mean, it took Cameron Hayward like 3 years to finally get on the field.
Yeah, I know, which is amazing because he's probably their best player on that team right now.
Stud
in Cam Hayward, he's so good. What did you guys think about the rest of the AFC North draft? I don't know if y'all have talked about this. I mean,
we didn't. We wanted to, though. But yeah, I think we should, because I thought it was an interesting draft for the Steelers and the Ravens. I thought they did a good job. What did you think?
I mean, I think most of the teams did well. The Bengals was a little strange. I mean, it was all over the board. I think that tight end they picked doesn't really.
Yeah. Adam, what was your comment on the tight end? Adam had the best comment.
Yeah.
That tight end is an 8-8 tight end.
You said 6 and 10. You said
whatever.
6 and 10.
I mean, he's the perfectly average tight end that doesn't really. That dude's never gonna. No one's gonna worry about like how are we gonna get this kid to a second contract? He's so perfectly average, and he's so perfectly Cincinnati Bengal.
Yeah, but I feel like that kind of carried through in most of their draft picks. I mean, Jonah Williams kind of fits that.
I agree, yeah.
Right? Like nobody was super pumped about him at tackle. Like there's questions about if he can even play tackle at the next level or if he needs to be a guard. I mean, he's an upgrade from what they had from Bobby Hart at right tackle and whatever guy they rolled out at left tackle last season. I don't even remember.
Kid, they traded for a dude from the Bills. I can't remember his name.
Right. Cordy Glenn's an all right player.
Yeah, Glenn.
Drastic improvement from what they had in Abue, Jake Fisher. Yeah. And then Ryan Finley from NC State. I mean, I feel like he's the sixth quarterback drafted in this draft. I feel like he's just pretty average. I mean, I know he's a fourth round pick, and so he's kind of just a flyer quarterback for them. Knowing that they are probably starting to look towards Andy Dalton's replacement, and this is the first guy that's going to have the shot, like, I'm not intimidated.
Yeah. I mean, when they drafted Jonah Williams, I said to Adam, like, thank you. I just keep taking tackles, keep taking guards, whatever you do. Don't take a quarterback. Keep doing it for us, Bengals. I mean, live in that 6 and 10 and love it.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole draft. I'm looking at the draft, and the whole thing is a 6 and 10. They drafted 2 running backs, for Christ's sakes. Name one guy on here that's going to make an impact that even matters. I mean, Jermaine Pratt, he could be a pretty good inside linebacker. But how much of an impact is it going to make?
Yeah.
Yeah. Renell Wen, I mean, he's got all kinds of athletic ability. Maybe he does something, but he's never produced. He's never done anything. Michael Jordan, we know as a guard from Ohio State, was not even good at Ohio State. Good luck playing in the pros.
Also, he's a guard. Yeah.
And you're a guard. Keep drafting those guards and tackles, baby.
I thought the Steelers and Ravens, though, might have improved. That's a little bit scary for the Browns because the Steelers, I don't think drafted real well last year, but this year's draft, I liked.
Did you like trading up for Devin Bush? I mean, I know they didn't give up a whole lot, I mean, they had to give up a second-round pick, I believe.
I'm never
Second and
trading
a
up
third,
for a
wasn't it?
linebacker.
Yeah. So it was a second and a third, I thought. Was it not? Here's the thing about that. If they hit, Devin Bush is a really good talent, right? But you traded up for an inside linebacker, which is one of the most often injured positions. Like inside linebackers miss like more games, or right there, like first or second in the league at missing games due to injury because of the physical nature of it. So you take him at 10, and you might have cost yourself, I think it cost him 2 other picks. So now you're talking about if he doesn't work out due to injury or something of that, I think he's going to be a pretty good player if he's not injured. If he doesn't work out because injury, you just lost 3 players to get a middle linebacker. Yeah. That's tough.
Yeah, the opportunity cost on moving up to pick a linebacker, I'm not a fan of. And if I was a Steelers fan, I would be a little disappointed on that. With that said, there weren't many linebackers in this draft that were worth taking at the top or would be capable of coming in day one and making an impact on your defense. So that's the justification they made. I also like Justin Lane, their pick from Michigan State.
Yeah.
A long cornerback. I think he's a Cleveland kid. Am I right?
Youngstown.
Yeah. So he could be good. I was kind of mad to see him go to Pittsburgh. I know he was a guy that we were hoping to get, but when you take Greedy Williams with your first pick, you're probably not going corner the next time around.
I might be wrong on Youngstown, by the way.
He's from somewher in Ohio.
Edit that from the podcast.
And mentally edit it because it won't be physically edited.
But Steelers, when you trade up, you need to get corner, edge rusher, quarterback. That's all you should be trading up for in the first round. Maybe the Steelers think this dude can do it for us. We saw the Browns not trade up, and then a corner fell to them. Matthew, were you like excited about the corners ahead of Greedy? Did you feel like we missed a corner that you would have rather have?
I really don't think so. I really didn't want to take a corner back when we still had a first round pick and we were picking at 17. I didn't want to take a corner because I didn't really like the value of any of them at that spot. I thought we were going to go D lineman, but when Greedy fell to 46 when we traded up to go get him, I think that's a tremendous value. I didn't love any of the corners really in this draft. There wasn't a guy where I felt like, you have to have him. He's a surefire pick. There's a lot of guys that were really good at what they could do, and it was a matter of scheme fit. I think Greedy's going to be good for us, and at the end of the day, he's a second-round pick. So if it doesn't work out, it's not like it's not a Justin Gilbert situation where we spent the 8th overall pick in the draft on a guy.
So I did misspeak. We did trade up 3 spots, but we didn't trade into the first round. I think me and Greg also talked. We didn't even know if there was a first-round corner in this class, which is weird. Yeah,
it's a possibility. I mean, in our pre-draft pod, we did some prop bets on the NFL draft, and one of the ones that I chose was that a DB would be drafted other than some of the top 4 guys. It was Baker out of Georgia. It was Greedy Williams. It was Murphy and somebody else. I'm not sure. Just because there was so much variability, nobody knew if a corner was even going to get taken in the first round, if a DB was even going to get taken in the first round, which is kind of nuts to think about.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me because I think they all had sort of warts to them, So, and then we talked about it like there was a bubble of cornerbacks there, and then once they all start falling down, not every team is going to need a corner, and then Justin Lane falls to the Steelers there, so they got good value out of that. That was a good pick for the Steelers. They come back and draft a running back after that, like Benny Snell. I'm not excited about that. Getting back into talking about the teams in our division they're drafting, like Zach Gentry, another 6 and 10 tight end. And then one of the other picks that they had, you guys know Sutton Smith. I know Adam and we talked about him a little bit, but he's like 6 foot. He's like 230 pounds. If he didn't lead the nation in pressures, he was pretty damn close. I don't know what the exact stats on him, but the kid is just a phenomenal pass rusher, but he's way undersized, but like a perfect Steelers pick. So I thought they had really good value in those picks anyways. And then Deontay Johnson, I don't know how much you watch him, but man, he is super like slippery, very silky smooth wide receiver from Toledo. So I thought they did a good job with that. And then what do you think about the Ravens, though? What did you think about their overall draft?
Every time they picked, after the pick, I was kind of mad, which to me is a signal that they probably had a pretty good draft because I was thinking about playing them twice a year.
Yeah.
Marquise Brown just fits exactly what they need. I mean, it's kind of a boom or bust pick, but if he's
field stretcher for sure,
if he's half as good as he was in college and can stay healthy and stay on the field, he's going to be a difficult guy to guard. Jalen Ferguson, we'll see how he translates to the NFL. I mean, with that, I mean, what did he run? Like a 4.8, and his 3-cone was atrocious.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah, one of the worst I've ever seen.
So we'll see if he's able to do anything. I mean, he kind of reminds me of like a Courtney Upshaw, who if he's still on the Ravens, I don't know, but just kind of was a decent pass rusher. Jalen Ferguson was a really productive pass rusher in college, but we'll see if the skill set translates and he's able to carry that production forward. Miles Boykin, another fast kid.
It's Adam's guy.
Yeah, I like Boykin. And those dudes are also third-round picks. The Ravens didn't have a second-round pick. Jalen Ferguson's the 21st pick in the third round. So, I mean...
Oh, and people were talking about him in the first round before he went and ran that 3-cone. So you go based off of tape, they're going, oh, this guy's a first-round pick. And then he's a terrible tester, which, you know, I mean, sometimes it matters, but does it always matter? We see these guys overcome that kind of stuff all the time. There's exceptions to the rule. If he ends up being an exception to the rule and can rush the passer the way he did in college, they got to steal.
Yeah, he's going to be a guy who they either cut 2 seasons from now because he doesn't have production, or he plays for them for 12 seasons and is like inducted into their Ring of Honor, and everybody wonders.
Like the next Terrell Suggs.
Yeah. Sack record, and they let the Ravens take him in the third round.
Yeah, I mean, Suggs, I remember Suggs falling for athletic reasons. And then next thing you know, I mean, talk about being in the Ring of Honor, he'll be there eventually. But yeah, the Marquise Brown pick to me is like, it's perfect for them because they're going to want to run the ball down your throat. You know, that's the reason why I like the Browns getting the linebackers where they did and making sure that we have that flexibility to not only play the pass but play the run. And because Baltimore's you're gonna go from the Steelers throwing the ball all over the field on you, you're gonna come in the next week, you're gonna play Baltimore, they're gonna try to run it down your throat, and now they have a guy that's gonna make your safeties honor the pass. They're gonna have to play deep because this guy, we've seen him do it all in last 2 years with Baker, and then this year with what's his name for Kyler Murray. That he just gets behind you and he makes plays. You get the ball in his hands and he's going to go, and good luck trying to catch him. So I thought that was I'm not even surprised he was the first overall wide receiver taken because of what he can do. But there is a lot of risk when you're taking a 170-pound wide receiver in the first round. Yeah,
if he was 2 inches taller and 10 to 15 pounds heavier, he probably would have been like a top 10, 12 pick. No doubt. It's just he's as small about as you've ever seen in the NFL playing wide receiver.
And then to get a really fast back to match with Ingram, because, you know, they've always had, I don't know what it is, the Ravens love to draft some slow running backs for some reason. They never really they get some plotters in there. The kid from Louisiana Tech that came back last year was pretty decent. Dixon, he gives you a little bit of shiftiness, but to get Justice Hill in the 4th round, like 4'4" guy, smaller, more of like a scat back type thing, guy that can, hit the home run for you. That's a huge pick, I thought. And then they got Dalen Mack later, who I thought the Browns might take a look at to play the interior and to shore that up. Trace McSorley, I don't think is really going to do much for you. But yeah, that makes the Ravens better. That makes the Steelers better. Those are the 2 teams we're definitely going to have to worry about this year.
What do you think they're going to do with McSorley? Are they going to let him play quarterback the whole time? Are they going to mix him into some interesting offensive sets? I don't know why you would, because it would seem like you're taking the ball out of Jackson's hands, who's a much more dynamic athlete and you would assume would be a better passer at this point in his career than McSorley is coming in this year. But are they going to win the season with Jackson, McSorley, and RG3 as their quarterback depth chart?
Yeah, hey, if you're going to do anything, like let's say you want to do something with McSorley where you get him on the field because of his playmaking ability, I would be doing that with RG3 first, right? RG3 would probably be a better wide receiver for you than he would quarterback. Let's be fair.
Yeah, I don't know. Credit to the Ravens for going all in on this style of play. Like they are going to run the ball. They are going to run some quarterback misdirections, like RPOs. They're just going to do it, and they're going to wear you out with it because they don't have any other option at this point. They've constructed the roster to be solely focused on that style of play.
Well, isn't that what maybe you should be doing? If the league is such a passing league and everybody's going smaller and you can't get a top tier quarterback because you keep making the playoffs, you're not going to be able to get that guy at the top, right? They keep going 9-7, 10-6 every single year. They're not going to get an opportunity at that. They're going to have to take a shot on a different game plan, a different game style than what the rest of the NFL is, and maybe that works because people are getting smaller on defense, you know?
And probably have the right coach to do that experiment.
I feel like Belichick would do that. I feel like that's what Belichick's all about.
Who was it in the playoffs that Belichick ran just like 50 running plays against and just ran down their throat this last season?
What
team was that? The Chargers? Was that the Chargers game? I think
he did. They turned into a running team this year. I mean, let's be honest. They once Josh Gordon went out, they didn't really have a passing game. Gronk was struggling, you know. Tom Brady just didn't have anybody to throw to. You're throwing out, who'd they even have at wide receiver besides Edelman? That was it. I mean, the other guys were all bums. I can't even think of who else they even had out there.
Kevin Hogan. No, not Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin Hogan.
They've kind of ran that for years.
Yeah. And they're going, okay, the league's going this way. Well, all right, we'll counter that and we'll run Sony Michel down your throat 25 times a game. And then we also have these other backs. And then we're going to throw it to our back 10 times during the game too. And make you run all around. And you got a bunch of undersized guys that can't fight off blocks anymore because the league's going small. Then we're going to play against that. And that might be a smart thing to do. You know, when if you can't get to one of the best passers in the league, then you have to figure out another way to do it. And it takes a special coach to do that.
Yeah, the difference with the Patriots, though, is they're able to make those changes week to week. Yeah. The Ravens are going all in on that change. Yeah. It's going to be locked in for the whole year. So if it starts going bad, it could go bad quick.
Yes. Now, the one fear that I have as a Browns fan is that Lamar Jackson actually starts to become accurate, to become a much better quarterback. Because if he can do that, it's a problem.
Yeah.
Right now, he's not good. Yeah. Right now, he's just not a good thrower, you know. So he's got ways to go. And of course, he's going to improve. But what's his ceiling there? How good can he get? That's what I worry about. So, but that's an issue. Speaking of Josh Gordon, I brought up Josh Gordon. I want to ask you, like, we like Evan Silva here. We had him on, but he had this comment today. I want to hear what you guys think. This was on Twitter. Josh Gordon trade wound up as Patriots get Gordon, who finished top 25 among NFL wide receivers in yards per game. New England went 8-3 when he played, and 3-2 when he didn't. Browns got Oklahoma kicker Austin Seibert. Or do we figure out what his name is yet, Adam?
Seibert.
Okay, Seibert, who never made a field goal longer than 51 yards in college as a 4-year starter. What do you guys think of that statement?
We always knew it was a 5th-round pick. It shouldn't matter really what you use that 5th-round pick on evaluating this trade. I mean, we got Mack Wilson in the 5th round. If we swapped those picks and we used the Patriots pick to take Mack Wilson, do we feel better about the trade?
Yeah, right. That makes sense.
I mean, no, probably not. I mean, it's still a 5th-round pick. Trade when 3 years from now, when one of those players turns into something.
I'm not sure what Evan was going for there, but what are we going to do with Josh Gordon? Everyone was already stretched to the limit on Josh here.
There was people that wanted to keep him. Like, how could you do this? He just needs one more chance.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what he was trying to say. If we were the losers and they were the winners, or
I believe that's what he was going for. And we like Evan.
I'm interested to know is from a Patriots fan perspective, how are you feeling about the Josh Gordon trade, right? Because certainly you didn't trade for him just to get 13 regular season games out of him and then like not have him in the playoffs and then give up an asset and not have him when it matters most. Like, are they happy with their side of the trade at this point.
Well, I think, did you see they're already posting the videos of him working out? I saw that it was either yesterday or
the off season, huh, Greg? Where the Josh Gordon workout videos coming out?
Nobody works harder than Josh Gordon, Matthew. Nobody.
What I love is a new fan base, like who this is a new thing to, and they get to be like themselves up into being excited about it and thinking that it means something.
Yeah. No, it's not like we haven't lived through this.
Exactly.
What's unbelievable to me is how long some Browns fans are still roped in on it. Like, I can't believe we gave this away. We're so stupid. Meanwhile, like I said, we like Evan, but man, Josh Gordon, the Patriots won the Super Bowl. Josh Gordon wasn't playing. New England went 8-3 when he played, 3-2 when he didn't. They won a Super Bowl after that. What are we talking about? Who cares what the rest of their regular season went like? It doesn't matter. They won a Super Bowl without Josh Gordon.
Yeah, why did he leave? Why did he leave their playoff record off of that stat line?
Not sure.
Should
fit the narrative.
Him and like 7-2 without him or something.
Yeah, 6-2 with a bye or whatever it is. Yeah,
yeah.
I don't think the tweet kind of drives home the point that he was hoping for quite as well. If you include the playoff wins.
Sometimes you got to design your tweet to fit your narrative a little bit, man. Come on. So yeah. I mean, and the other thing is, we talked about it on this podcast. Like, I was ready to just cut Josh Gordon. I didn't even need anything for him. I was so fed up with Josh Gordon. I didn't want him back. I didn't want him around the other players. I don't even want him in the building. He does nothing except get your hopes up. Oh my God, look at him. Oh God, look at Josh Gordon. He's a workout freak. He's working so hard. He's just got mental health problems. You can't hate on Josh Gordon. If you hate on him, then you hate on people with mental health problems. You can't even talk bad about him. Poor Josh Gordon. He's fighting so hard to come back. And then he breaks your heart when you get in, you go 8-3 and he breaks your heart. Now he's not here for your playoff run. No thanks. We didn't need it. We don't want it. We have Odell Beckham Jr. now. We have Jarvis Landry. We have Antonio Callaway. We don't need Josh Gordon. I would rather have a kicker who only kicked one field goal longer than 51 yards in his college career over Josh Gordon at this point.
No, I mean, it's hard to argue with that. What do you guys think about kicker? We signed a new kicker today, too, an undrafted rookie free agent.
Well, yeah, I saw that. Dorsey said it's all about competition. That's what he.
They're going to bring these three guys in, including what's his face who kicked for us last year.
Well, they can leave Josh. They can leave. Yeah, they go ahead and just leave Joseph home for all I care, to be honest. And he wasn't even that bad. I don't think his kicking stats were all that bad by the end of the year. But
they really weren't. Struggled on the end, I think.
I mean, but it's almost like a golf shot, right? Like every, 1 out of 5, I can go out there and make it look like Tiger Woods, but the other 4 look like Greg Joseph's swing.
So you guys were talking about Odell. Matthew, what was with Mark and Michael, what was the texting like? Where were you at that point? Like, did you guys go crazy or?
Yeah, so we did. And so we're all in the same city, but we don't spend 24 hours a day together. So it was kind of one of those situations where it's like we were all doing our own thing. I was at my house. I think I was like getting ready to install some hardwood floors or something. And I start getting the text, and you kind of feel the momentum picking up, and you can kind of like tell that something's about to happen. And then it comes through, and I immediately left my house. I think I left the doors unlocked. Like I didn't pick up anything, left it all wide open, and just drove. Like started calling. Actually called my grandfather because he only gets his news from the local newspaper. Local newspaper.
Hey, you won't find out about this until tomorrow, but
exactly. So I felt like he needed to know. It was a surreal moment. And then I'm a nerd, and I'm a analytical type. I'm a baseball fan. I'm a fan of the Paul D. Podestas, the Sashi Browns, the Sam Hinkies of the world. And so the first thing that comes into my mind is, oh shit, what did we give up? To get a player like Odell Beckham. And then when the compensation came through like 5 minutes later, that all we had to give up was a first, third next year and Jabril Peppers. We robbed them.
Yeah.
Gettleman is by far the worst GM in the league. And the Odell Beckham trade might have been only the third most egregious thing he's done in the last 12 months.
What's so funny is when you look at, and I was like, okay, so what is the Giants doing with this whole plan, right? And then you look at their draft and okay, last year you don't draft Sam Darnold, but now you're taking Daniel Jones. Who has Daniel Jones ranked over Sam Darnold? Anybody in the league? Like, that in itself should get you fired. One, that you're going to do that, like that you blew that, and people can like Saquon Barkley as much as they want and talk him up, but he's still a running back, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the only thing I can think of is that Dave Gettleman somehow cannot look into the future and make decisions based on anything than what's directly in front of him at the moment.
Yeah.
How do you? The Giants had an opportunity even after they drafted Saquon Barkley. If they had played their cards right, they could have come into this season with Saquon Barkley, Odell Beckham, Josh Rosen, and the number 6 pick in the NFL draft that they could have added to their team.
Yeah. Okay. So then, what's that? I didn't hear what you just said.
They have Saquon Barkley. They have Eli Manning, Daniel Jones, Dexter Lawrence, and
did you mention Peppers?
Yeah,
they got Peppers and they got Kevin Zeitler. So yeah, I mean, you just brought up. So then they take that 17th pick, they trade Odell Beckham Jr. away, and then they take a nose tackle at 17. A nose tackle. What world are we living in? What NFL is this guy watching? Maybe he's thinking he's playing 15 games or 16 games against the Baltimore Ravens this year, that he needs to stop the run so badly he's got to take it in the first round. After he traded away one of the best run-stopping nose tackles in the league to Detroit last year for a 5th-round pick. It makes zero sense. Why would you do that? You traded away a guy that's going to do the exact same thing that you're already getting, and then in return you're going to spend the number 1 overall pick or the 17th overall pick for it, and then after that you trade away Odell Beckham Jr. You get Dexter Lawrence. What was the other move? Oh, you give away your pass rusher. Who the heck's rushing the passer? And he brings up at the press conference, well, we expect Dexter Lawrence to be able to apply some pressure. He's very good at that. And a lady asked him at the presser, she goes, he has 2 sacks in 2017 and 2018. He had 2 sacks. And he goes, he had a bad foot. What the hell's going on? He goes, I'm telling you, he's going to be able to affect the pass rush by getting push in the middle. Dude, he's not tackling. Who is he? Dexter Lawrence isn't catching anybody. He's not running anybody down from behind and tackling them. And then you don't pay your safety, and you end acquiring another safety in this trade that was so valuable to you that we love Jabril Peppers so much more than I can't remember the other kid's name, but
Landon
my
Collins.
God, Landon Collins. I'm taking Landon Collins 10 times over 10 over Jabril Peppers, and I know you got to pay him.
Yeah, one of my favorite things in this trade is he kept referring to Jabril Peppers as a number 1 pick, as a first-round pick, as if he got 2 first-round picks in return. And it's like, no, man, he's already burned 2 years of his rookie contract. The value is not the same as having a true first-round pick. You can't just trade for a guy who used to be a first-round pick and think it's the same value.
It's just complete backwards. I mean, they legitimately are the new Browns. I mean, I didn't sit there and study the quarterbacks this year. So, other people can tell me how Daniel Jones is. I'll wait till I actually see him play. I watched 1 game of him. I didn't see anything super special. Seems fine. He can run around, get out of the pocket. It seemed like his team was absolutely terrible. Maybe he's good. If he's good, great. But watching him and then seeing the stuff Sam Darnold did, it took in 1 game that I watched, I'm like, I mean, you can see it with Sam Darnold. This kid, he looks to be a work in progress.
No, they can let Daniel Jones sit for 3 years.
Yeah, I forgot he said that.
That was his other comment. We can let him sit for 3 years. He has no idea of what the NFL is now. that if you have a rookie quarterback, he has to play. He has to be good. You have to play him because then you don't have to pay anybody else. You can't pay Eli $100 million and sit your rookie quarterback for 3 years. By the time you get rid of Eli, now you got to pay your rookie quarterback. That's just the dumbest fucking comment ever.
Yeah, if you listen to it, that's the problem. I don't know if him and Dorsey went to the same school of like how to talk to the press, but
that might be
it's not. He doesn't even he doesn't mean anything by it. He's just saying. He actually said after that, I could get hit by a car next too. He might not play for 3 years, or I could walk outside and get hit by a car. I don't know. You never know. That's like his throwaway comment. Yeah. You think the media is not going to run with that though? Like, are you that dumb that you're going to say you might sit for 3 years and think that they're not going to report? You just don't say stuff. There's some things you just have to know not to say. And he's, I don't know. It's just terrible. It's terrible GM, general managing from all aspects. I mean, the player acquisition's terrible. The media is terrible. Everything about it. It's gross.
I'm just trying to picture how bad Daniel Jones would have to be to still be sitting behind Eli 3 years from now. Like how like incapable is Eli Manning going to be in 3 years when he's like 42 years old?
When they're going 3-13
to
last year, like when Eli's good and they had Beckham.
Yeah.
And Saquon.
I can't wait till they're really bad the next 2 years and they pass on Tua and then they pass on Lawrence out of Clemson because they've got Jones sitting there.
He said, you'll see. Hey, give me 3 years. We'll see if I'm crazy or not. Well, I'm telling you this, Mr. Gettleman, you're not going to get 1 year if this thing ends up being a dumpster fire right from the jump. And I actually like DeAndre Baker, who he drafted, and like his whole draft wasn't completely terrible. Like he got a couple decent deals in there, but my God, like just a nose tackle at 17. What is this, Danny Shelton? Like, what are we doing? You don't take a nose tackle at 17. You just don't do it.
Or 12. Danny Shelton, by the way.
No, Danny Shelton was 17. Was he? Or was he 12? Yeah, he was 12. Yeah, the other dude was 17, wasn't he?
Has he signed with anybody yet, by the way? Danny Shelton?
I don't think so.
Shouldn't the Browns bring him back to be our backup one tech?
100%. If he's unrestricted free agent, you definitely bring him back to play one tech. What do you think of our defensive line? This was a stacked defensive line draft, according to most draft analysts, and we did not take anybody on the defensive line. I think everyone thought that we were going to. We did add Richardson in free agency, but what was you and your brother's takes on what happened on the defensive line this year?
Well, it's a little surprising given that it was coming into the draft, it was one of the top 3 most glaring needs that our team had. And not that you necessarily have the opportunity to fix every one of your team needs through the draft, but this is the second year in a row now that Dorsey hasn't drafted an interior defensive lineman, Chad Thomas excluded, to try to fix a position group that doesn't have any real depth to it. We're coming in with a depth chart this year that looks a little better than last year, given that we've got one more year of Ogunjobi, who's proved himself, and we know what we got there, and then bringing in Richardson. But shy of that, aren't we still rolling out Carl Davis and Trevin Coley as our next 2 guys up?
Is Brian Price still on the team? I can't remember. Was his contract up? That Brian Price? I feel like he was still on there. That would be the other guy, but yeah, it's ugly.
Yeah, I mean, and so it's interesting. I mean, it's hard to justify at each one of the picks. I think when we got to the Taki pick in the 3rd round, there were still some D tackles on the board that I was interested in picking. Kalen Saunders is a guy who I really liked. He would fit that one tech pretty well. He's a really athletic guy, kind of a little bit of a project, but guy who hustles every single play. I think he got picked 2 picks after we took Taki. It's hard to argue. We'll see what Taki turns into, and certainly, Lord knows, we need help at linebacker, at least depth, because we've got little to nobody there. So maybe we're splitting hairs on whether we picked a linebacker or a defensive tackle at that point. But I would certainly feel a lot better going into the season if we're able to add somebody even of a Danny Shelton quality, who we know we can plug him in and get what we get from him if need be.
They were actually good at stopping the run in 2017, if you recall, when Shelton was here. Like, I get it. He doesn't give you anything in the pass game, and maybe there's going to be games where you use him like the Patriots use him, where he might just be inactive. You know, okay, we're playing Arizona this week, and you know they're going to roll out 4 wide receiver sets. Danny Shelton's inactive. Okay, you don't have to break the bank for the guy. That's fine if he doesn't fit your game plan.
If you have a guy who's willing to play that role and be okay with being inactive when he's not going to see a lot of snaps.
Yeah. And then he comes back and he plays against the Ravens. It's like the perfect, you need that. You need something. We need to have something, because looking at it right now, if Carl Davis is I don't know who else would be behind Ogunjobi. It's got to be Carl Davis. Maybe Coley can do some of that, but Coley's really more of a 3-tech. The thing that I'm looking at the roster, I'm just starting to think more and more is that they're really planning on, the reason why they didn't take an interior guy is maybe they're really planning on playing Chad Thomas at that 3-tech.
If Chad Thomas is going to play, it's going to have to be at the 3-tech, right? I mean, he's not going to get pass rush snaps on the outside.
No, and he could be damn near 290 pounds easily. That might have been what the whole idea from Chad Thomas was because he's a big boy. I mean, he's a big boy when it comes to being a defensive end. He's way bigger than the typical defensive end. So you slide him inside. It's just he's a tweener. He definitely had to add weight if that's what he was going to do. But I mean, who else are you going to play him on? He's not going to beat anybody out on the edge. So what's your other thinking? And you know damn well there's a little bit of my guyism going on where it's like, well, we drafted him in the 3rd round. We have to find a way to get him on the field. There's always some of that going on. But so did you get a chance to go and watch some Taki after? Like, were you surprised? I know you guys had Brugler on. Did Brugler talk at all about Taki?
Brugler's not a huge fan of Taki. I mean, he was the 18th ranked linebacker on his board. I did watch a little bit of Taki because, to be honest, I had no idea. I'd heard his name because it's an awesome name, but short of that, I didn't know anything about him. He seems like a chess piece in a lot of ways. And I love that we added 2 young athletic linebackers because we need depth at that spot. So if one of them comes through, but he's given his size, I don't know that he really plays on the edge for us. I think he's an outside linebacker in kind of a 4-3 or even like a nickel linebacker set, where he can do a little bit of everything. He can rush the passer. He can cover. He's real fast, real athletic, but he's not going to be even a Jannard Avery with put your hand on the ground on 3rd down and get after the quarterback kind of guy.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, I know that's what they asked him to do in college, and he dropped weight this year to play full-time linebacker. But yeah, I agree with you. He's going to be full-time linebacker here. I mean, that's the biggest position of need. I mean, outside of Joe Schobert, we've brought it up on this show a million times. I mean, that's all we have, in my opinion. Darius Taylor was the other guy they picked up this year. Ray Armstrong still on the roster. DeJuan Hines still on the roster. But I mean, come on. So Mac Wilson, Sione, Taki. They got to get it done quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're going to be seeing some early.
They're going to be seeing early snaps because if Kirksey can't stay on the field, it gets real thin real quick at linebacker. And what I love about Taki, he loves playing special teams. He can take every single snap that Tanner Vallejo played on special teams last year for all I care.
Yes.
I'm glad that guy's out of Cleveland and out in Arizona now. He was killing me whenever he had to come into the actual defensive sets. I think we got an interesting player. We'll see what he turns into. He's an interesting guy because he just hasn't really played one position for any more than a year or 2 at a time. He seemed to be moving around. That could be an asset, or it could be he just is pretty good at everything and not great at anything in particular. So we'll see what he turns into, but hopefully he can at least provide some competition at that linebacker spot and be an athlete on special teams screaming down the field.
Yeah, the special teams has definitely improved this offseason. It needed to. I mean, there was points where we were probably 8 weeks in where we were like the worst rated. This was on what was the site that I used to use, Adam, all the time?
Football Outsiders, yeah.
Football Outsiders. It was like historically worst rank special teams in the history. Yeah, absolutely terrible. And it started to get a little better. I think that was when Hugh started getting in on special teams meetings. Remember when Hugh brought that up? Like, I want to start getting involved.
Amos fucking Jones, that piece of work.
I like football. Football is good.
Or as we called him on our podcast, we called him Anus Jones.
Yeah, so it looks like special teams is going to be a hell of a lot better. I mean, that was something they really attacked. When you look at the full roster right now, Matthew, what are you thinking is like? What do you think the weak points are, and what do you think is something that maybe we can still improve going up to the beginning of the season?
Yeah, looking at just this season, interior defensive line is by far the biggest glaring roster weakness. Just the depth there. I feel like we have two good starters in Ogunjobi and Richardson, but if any one or both of those guys go down, we're in some serious trouble in our defensive line. Offensive line is going to be interesting. Having Corbett come in and start at right guard, and we didn't see a lot of him last year. He's obviously a high pick, so they've got to feel pretty good about him if they're willing to trade away Zeitler. But potential problem spot for me. And then Chris Hubbard didn't really live up to his contract last year, so if he doesn't step up, or God forbid he regresses a little bit, that right side of our offensive line could be difficult to watch at times.
How far do you want to drag him? Yeah. Gerald McCoy has come up in some Twitter rumors, or Browns Twitter rumors. Is that something you guys have talked about, or something that you personally are on board with?
Yeah. That would help out that D tackle room for sure.
It would help out the D tackle. And I just don't know if it fits from a roster standpoint. I mean, who do you put Ogunjobi on the bench? Do you put Richardson on the bench? I mean, you certainly can play three defensive tackles and cycle them through, but can he and Richardson play together effectively? I don't know. And we've also got Myles Garrett, who we want to kind of slide inside and get some more pass rushers on the field. It just doesn't seem like it's a guy who we necessarily want to invest, especially draft capital and trading for, if we're not going to utilize all of those pieces kind of all at the same time. We're going to be wasting a lot of talent on the bench at times. Even if we had all three of those guys in the locker room.
Even if he gets cut, you got to think that he's going to get $8 to $10 million a year contract from somebody.
Yeah, you would,
right?
Yeah.
If he was a guy you could pick up for a 1 year, like $2, $3, $4, $5 million deal, by all means, go on and do it. But he's not a spring chicken by any means, but he's still young enough where somebody will give him a couple year deal with some significant money to it.
Yeah, I would have taken him over Sheldon Richardson had we had the opportunity before, which really doesn't make much sense. You would think that if Tampa was going to trade him, that the value would have been before free agency. I don't know. I guess we'll see. There's always ways to finagle the cap situation there some. So maybe they'll end up keeping him.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a GM that I don't know we've seen a pattern of good decision making out of. So maybe like Gettleman Light down there in Tampa. But we were talking about this before we started recording. I think somehow they're in a bad cap position, and they might have one of the worst rosters in football. So
offensively, they're not bad.
But
yeah, offensively, they're halfway decent. I mean, the quarterback play has not been great, but they've had some pretty good wide receivers over the past couple years. But defensively, just terrible, absolutely terrible. The one problem, the biggest need that I think, just looking at the roster to me though, is still that tackle position, offensive tackle. Or I'm even more worried about that than I am. Both.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah.
Like I'm not.
That's one of the problems. Is maybe we're gonna get, as the teams have to thin out, as the 90 mans come to fruition, and then the cut downs to 53. Is there someone out there right now that the Browns might have their eye on, maybe to replace right tackle?
I don't know. Well, Kendall Lam is the guy that they picked up. They paid from Houston. They did get him. Now, he's in the mix to try. You got to think Chris Hubbard's gonna have the lead there, but I mean, there's competition there now. Desmond Harrison's still on the roster, but it's again like none of these guys are good. Like they're all at best average. And I'm worried that Greg Robinson, coming off the best season in his career, which was not even like, it was still subpar at our left tackle with our second-year quarterback, I'm afraid he's going to get him killed. To be honest.
Hey, he did better than what's his face, who we had playing in there before, Desmond Harrison. Yeah, I feel like we have 3 tackles who are all just fine, which is maybe more than some teams could say. I mean, there's kind of a dearth of talent at the tackle position in the NFL right now. So to answer your question, I don't suspect that there's anybody who's going to get cut that we could bring in to improve us. But I certainly don't feel it's a far cry from the Joe Thomas, Mitchell Schwartz days where you felt just so good about both of your tackles going into the season.
I cannot believe we wasted those years. Those, like you look back and you go, those are the years where we went 5-11 every year and we had one of the best lines. Alex Mack. I mean, we were stacked. It's unbelievable.
How bad were those quarterbacks and coaches that even handed like that hand?
GMs, quarterbacks, coaches, all terrible. But yeah, I mean, and then the other one would be you move into the guard and just not knowing what you're going to get with Austin Corbett yet. It's you can say that about a lot of players in the league. Until he's thrown in there. I mean, he had 14 snaps last year, so it's a little bit of the unknown. But yeah, those are the 2 positions I'm worried about: defensive tackle and offensive line a little bit. So. We'll see. I mean,
if we look towards this season and think about what could go wrong, there's so much hype right now, but the NFL is kind of a crapshoot. Like if we end this season and the Browns went 7-9 and we're disappointing, I mean, I think we'll look back and see an offensive line that underperformed and interior defensive line that was thin and maybe suffered some injuries and just couldn't stop the run on anybody because Lord knows our backers aren't going to do it. Joe Schobert's not going to step up there and just stuff the running holes. That's not the type of linebacker he is. Mm-hmm. So if we can't stop it at the line of scrimmage, we're going to be in a bad way.
That's a good point, dude. Let's talk about that a little bit before we let you go. Now that the schedule's out, where were you guys at? Because our early schedule's a little tough. Do you see this team fighting through that early schedule adversity, or what? Did you just think that was a walkthrough? Like, what's your opinions on how the Browns are going to attack this season with the first-year head coach?
I love how our schedule starts. I mean, I feel like it's the first 2 games are very attackable, right? I mean, it's not like we're coming out of the gate playing the Chiefs or the Patriots, but if you look at those first 6 games in aggregate, I mean, it's a measuring stick. I think coming out of those first 6 games before we get to the bye, we're going to have a really good understanding of how good this football team is.
I love it.
If we come out and go 2-4, 3-3, you're not feeling great. You're knowing that they're young and they're learning, they're talented, but still got some ways to go. But if they come out and go 4-2 in those first 6 games, you look at the rest of the 10 games on that schedule. I mean, you've got the Patriots on the road.
There's that 2 games after the bye could be iffy.
But then the rest of the way, it's hard to pick out games that feel like they're going to be really, really difficult wins. I mean, every week in the NFL, you're playing against professional football players, so they're good teams, and you have to earn the win every week. But man, if we come out 4-2 in the first 6 games of the season, it's hard to pick out more than 3 games that could be losses, where we could potentially end up any worse than or what would that be, 11-5?
Yeah. Have you guys come up with any, opinions over like a overall?
I've been kind of stuck on the 12-4 number, and that, I mean, even saying that seems crazy. That 12-4, 11-5. I feel like there's going to be moments where we look unstoppable, and there's going to be moments where we look young and stupid.
For sure, you lose a game that we should have won, and for sure we win a game that we should have lost. I think that's kind of where the NFL is.
Absolutely. I mean, people are talking like, I know Doug Lesmerises had an article, and I like Doug, but came out and said he thinks they're going to go 14-2. NFL teams just don't go 14-2 very often. Like even the best NFL teams don't go 14-2. So I don't really care how favorable our schedule falls or how much better we seem to be. We're not going to go 14-2. That just seems ridiculous to me. I would say 11-5, and we're probably the 3 seed in the AFC, and everybody's going to rejoice in Cleveland. Although knowing Cleveland, we'll have talked ourselves into going 14-2 and be pissed off that we're only 11-5 somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like you pessimist. I had us at 16-0, so.
What are you talking about? You mean 20-0 Super Bowl?
Yeah, that's right. 20-0 Super Bowl champ. Right. So 11-5, I'm okay with that. I would be okay. That would be a success.
I think 11-5 is a success, but 8-8, I think, with this
I would cry.
Is a disaster.
Yeah.
And that is tough for a first-time head coach. Matthew, you guys going to continue the podcast if we go 7-9, 8-8, or 9-7 and miss the playoffs? Can you guys pull up by the bootstraps and do another year?
I think so. I mean, look, we started this podcast, and for the first 365 days of the podcast, we didn't have a single win. So I think if we go 7-9 or 8-8 and have to make some changes and adjustments, I think we'll pull out.
Have to fire a brother. One of you's gone. We don't know who it is. One of you is gone for sure.
Guys, we don't have a third brother or another brother to fill in if we get rid of one of them. So,
Greg, do you have anything else?
I have nothing.
Matthew, thanks for coming on, dude. The listeners, where can they find you?
Probably the same place they found your podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on, I think, Stitcher's a thing. We're pretty much everywhere you can find a podcast. We're also on Twitter, at Sin of Our Fathers. And we're now on Instagram. We have a younger brother on Instagram, and I am not good at Instagram, but he's killing it over there. So go follow us on Instagram, go follow us on Twitter, and we'd love to interact.
We're only on AOL, so I don't know.
Makes the podcast hard.
Dude, super appreciate you coming on, man. I know we've had scheduling issues in the past, and we've tried to get somebody on, so it's always tough. Everybody's got real life stuff, but you guys are actually putting out some of the best Browns content. It's awesome, and I appreciate it. Really, thanks for coming on, man.
Absolutely, guys. Anytime. Thank you.
Greg, what's our Twitter?
Our Twitter is at SCS Podcast, and our email is
season@gmail.com. Thanks for the ratings. I didn't even check the reviews. We may have a weekly jerk-off review, but I didn't look. So if you did,
there'll be plenty of jerking off next week.
We will read it on the podcast. We like self-pleasure here. Follow Sins of Our Fathers. These dudes are awesome. Matthew, again, thanks for coming on. #Barbasol. Greg, tell them what we say.
Keep on surviving.